Welcome to Shrouded Realities. We're going to have probably the nerdiest episode topic we've ever had in our life, which is the Younger Dryas Impact Theory. And I am Joey. We've got Connor and a special guest, Sam, sitting in seat number 2 because our seat number 1's out today.
Yep.
Say hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Thanks. And Ruby, the podcast dog. Just chilling, trying to figure out Sam.
Yeah, she's mugging hard.
She may want to bite your jugular.
It won't be the first time I got attacked by a dog, man.
Really? Yeah, all right. Won't be that start out that way, but yeah. So Younger Dryas, super nerdy. Just learned about it not too long ago.
Relatively new, anyway.
Yeah, it's a fairly new theory or hypothesis. Big word. Hypothesis that was started in 2009. Don't know who came up with it. Do we know who came up with it? Was it, what's his face?
No, I think it was somebody else, and he just kind of piggybacked off of it.
Randall Carlson?
Yeah, I'm not sure what his credentials are, but just from what I've heard on some podcasts, he's not like part of the community of experts in eyes of education level.
Yeah.
So you talking about big archaeology and big science?
Yeah.
A bit of a lone wolf.
The gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers of the information.
But you know, he obviously knows his stuff. And then of course you got Graham Hancock on the other end of the spectrum, who is a journalist. And so they've sort of ran him down the road for his research, and he's got a TV show called Ancient Apocalypse that he put on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have watched that.
I watched the whole thing today.
Did you really?
Yeah. I've watched
The whole thing?
I watched it before, but I watched it again today.
Wow, it must be nice not to have to work on Friday.
I was working while watching. You can do both.
Right.
You can do both, right?
That's true. I can't, but some people get that opportunity.
Yeah,
So.
I guess so. I'm a desk nerd.
I mean, I did listen to podcasts all day, like every day this week. So
Yeah.
Just to get ready for it.
Yeah, and the longer I would listen, I would just be like, I don't have a clue what I'm talking about.
Honestly, how many times have you heard Makeup on it?
A lot. Yeah. Nano diamonds, microspherals.
Microspherals.
I'm like, I'm going to get on there and talk about that, and people are going to be like, wow, he learned a new word.
Iridium.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
outta here.
See, don't even ask me about how to spell those because I struggled.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But we're going to sound smart.
Yeah.
Maybe. By
I
using
think,
those words.
and I think the biggest part of this is the concept that this wiped out ancient civilizations that may or may not have been more complex than we know about. And I think that's why people talk about it. It's like that this is a big turning point in that period.
Yeah.
And I think if it wasn't for that, I don't think it'd matter.
Yeah, and I'm anxious for us to talk about, too, how this fits into a biblical narrative. Like it kind of lines up with Noah and the flood, but then kind of not.
Yeah, so one thing that I always think about causes a little bit of issue with understanding biblical texts is time, right?
Yeah.
So we've got our own calendar. The Jewish calendar differs a bit from that. And then, of course, God's time versus our time. When you think about the creation story, in our mind, 7 consecutive days, 24 hours a day is sort of how we view that. But the Bible says that 1,000 years is like a day to the Lord.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to those specific elements, you don't really know whether or not that was literal explanation of time or if it was figurative. So,
Yeah.
And I'm, of course, probably not that well versed in
Yeah.
the creation calendar from beginning to where we are now, as
Yeah.
far as time frame.
Well, that's kind of why we're talking about it. You got to talk it out. Got to get it out. Got to think about it. Got to study on it a little.
Researched that one.
Probably would help.
Yeah, he's a youth pastor. I'm not real sure, but I'll get back to you on that.
So let's get into
So when you do say that at church, do you ever really come back to it?
No, I don't.
Nah.
I don't. I get to choose what I talk about. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about something I don't know about.
Yeah.
So let's give this a little bit of context of what this theory is. So 12,800, 12,900 years ago,
Yep.
there was a extraterrestrial, what they like to call a big word.
Yep.
Makes me think aliens, but they just mean from outer space.
Okay.
But extraterrestrial comets or debris or whatever hit some ice caps, flooded the entire, maybe not the entire world, but a very large portion of it.
It changed the sea level.
Yeah, by like
for sure.
What was it? 100 miles? It was wild.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so the theory is the Younger Dryas Impact Theory, right? And you're talking about not just one impact. You're talking about multiple impacts over the course of, I don't know what the time frame would have been. I think that this whole destructive phase in the Earth was like 1,000-year span, right? And so prior to that, the suggestion was made that there was an ancient civilization that was very technologically advanced, and they were the ones that were responsible for the old world. Things like Atlantis come up when you talk about that. Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if you're familiar with the megalithic structures. The Bimini Road would be one of those, and then also, of course, the pyramids in Egypt. Which they were just tombs. For the pharaohs
with no bodies in them.
That they never found dead bodies in. So
that were built by slaves that carried 100,000-pound rocks across the desert.
Yeah, hundreds of miles.
Makes about as much sense as going to the moon.
Pretty much.
Here we go.
Just,
Pull the pin.
Just rolling through the Van Allen radiation belt, unfazed.
Like a
you go to the
McDonald's
dentist.
drive-through.
You go to the dentist, and you got to put a lead vest on just to get your teeth X-rayed. But we just flew right through that bad boy
in an aluminum box.
And it was such a success. We just decided to destroy all the technology and data. So
and lost it.
Yeah,
and lost the footage.
Yeah, it's all gone.
Taped over it.
That was convenient as well. But
and now you see why we brought Sam onto the show.
Yep.
Well, it's just some context here, people. Several years ago, I was the guy that people made fun of because I would say crazy stuff like this, and jet fuel can't melt steel beams.
There you go.
And Epstein didn't kill himself either, but those
P.
are
Diddy
just
to
the
that
kind
list.
of the thing. Yeah, I hadn't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but it's coming.
P. Diddy got more oil than Texas.
That's sketchy. I don't know what he was doing, but it was very sketchy.
It's an adult slip and slide. That's what it is.
Oh my gosh, man! Anybody? I'm not even gonna say that.
Yeah.
So.
Leave that for P. Diddy.
There we go.
There it is.
Yeah. All right.
So let's just open the floor for this question to start out, because when you start talking about this and this whole narrative of an alternate history, right? What we know of, what we were taught in school, the mainstream narrative, and this theory is really contradictory to that, right? And so the first question that most people would have is, why are the supposed experts, those in academia, why are they trying to keep this from being the new narrative, right? What would your take be on that?
Mine would be that they just, because they've been taught it so long and they've been teaching it so long, you would have to rewrite everything, and a lot of people would have to admit, dang, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe my theory wasn't true because of all this new evidence that that's being found. I say we, like I'm out there digging. But
Dr. Joey
Dr.
Craig.
There it is. You're cooked.
I'm cooked.
PhD in archaeology from Western Sanford University. It's an online degree.
Yeah, but
2 years
Grand
during
Canyon.
COVID.
Yeah, but it goes against the narrative for one, and two, it's so hard to prove either way.
Yeah,
I mean, they've got this new evidence, and the new evidence, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is the black mat that they're talking about at archaeological digs, where they're seeing a layer of carbon in different metals and stuff that shouldn't be.
That's where your nanodiamonds and your microspherules come in.
They come in from space.
Yeah. So the black mat, we'll get to that shortly. Mat. But I mean, I agree. I think that when you're talking about a career in any respect, that's what those guys do for a living, right?
Yeah.
The guys who write the textbooks, the guys who run the programs at the colleges and universities, who teach those classes. the theories that a lot of these guys are teaching are theories that they came up with on their own, right?
Yeah.
That they're the experts. They have the authority to do that and to create those things and for it to be mainstream. And so, like you said, like if somebody comes along, especially like, these two guys, and they're like, hey, I think you're wrong. And they're like, this dude is tripping. Tripping.
Speaking of Connor, where did they get their
Well, supposedly
revelation?
they were dropping that acid hard.
So we'll save it for the end, but I've got a theory on the acid tie into the spirit realm and where this information may be coming from.
Yeah.
We'll save that for the end, though.
Yeah.
I'm
But,
interested to hear that.
Yeah, me and Connor just came up with it
Gotcha.
like while we were waiting for you to get here.
Well,
and-
these two main perpetrators, not maybe
perpetrators.
not the perpetrators,
Just call
but
them
proponents,
individuals.
proponents of this theory. One of them looks like a bad guy from a Die Hard movie. You can probably guess who.
Graham.
Graham
Yeah,
Hancock,
yeah.
Especially 10 years ago. It looks a little different
And
now. But
Randall Carlson looks like a truck driver.
Yeah.
Randall Carlson, if you said, close your eyes and imagine a geologist that
Eats rocks.
eat rocks, this guy would come up in your head.
Failed
bit-
out in college
Yeah.
and
like-
just went in anyway.
Just talks about stories of how he pulled 9s and 10s and just
yeah, but
dropped
that
out.
guy, dude.
he looks a little like a bad Santa Claus in a mall.
The thing.
Yeah, Mel
that-
Gibson in a different universe.
Let me see a picture of this guy right quick. Turn that over here. What is that deal right there
Which one?
with the
This
all-seeing
one?
eye? What is that?
I don't know.
That's
what
going to
that
be our
is.
thumbnails, what that's going to be.
That's cute.
You got Graham Hancock, you got Randall
Joe
Carlson,
Rogan.
Joe Rogan.
I didn't know who that was at first.
The
Yeah, he's-
Sphinx.
Man, they put some really bad screenshots up of poor old Joe, man.
Yeah. He's got a wild face. But yeah, Joe Rogan's actually kind of a big reason why this theory's gaining ground. He'd been talking to Hancock for a long time, and Hancock's been pushing this theory for a while on his show.
Hancock gets a little fired up talking
He does a
about
little
it.
bit.
He does.
They're very confident.
He didn't want to talk about the biblical portion.
He doesn't.
Not a big fan of that.
But surprisingly, there is Tim Mabarino does tie the two together.
Yeah.
Mm.
I didn't get a chance to dig into too much, but there is I did find an episode on YouTube where he talked about the Younger Dryas theory fitting in with his narrative.
I got a funny. So when I was listening to podcasts, I just, I'm just checking out Spotify.
Yeah,
I'm just like Randall Carlson.
Yeah.
And I see he's on this other guy's podcast. So I'm like, I'm going to look, it's an hour. I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
The guy that was hosting the podcast, it was like he didn't know anything about anything that Randall was talking about.
Kinda
Like
us.
Joe.
Kinda like us if he would-
It was worse. Like
Worse?
You know how Joe
We're
Rogan,
three idiots,
like
huh?
he usually doesn't know a lot about what these guys are experts in.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows more on that topic, but he's still an engaged listener and like asks really good questions and opens up the dialogue. This guy would just go like, "Oh, really? Really?" I was just like, this dude is an idiot. He might be dumber than me.
Well, it's good to know there's somebody that's a bigger idiot than us, because I kind of feel like we're the bottom of the barrel on the.
He had Carlson
Intellectual.
on his show, and I thought, man,
Looks
I
like
might
we
be
can
able,
get Carlson.
I
So you
might-
saying there's a chance we could get him
I
on?
might be able to slip in this guy's DMs and get him up here.
Okay, come on.
Yeah.
Ugh, I don't know if I'm slipping in his DMs, but we'll try to get him on the show. Anyway.
Oh man.
But yeah, so let's get into the black mat. Is that the biggest like physical evidence that they have of this hypothesis? Is that where it
No,
comes from?
Actually, the biggest physical evidence would be the monolithic or the megalithic structures, of course. I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of me being a smart aleck,
Yeah.
because those are huge.
Yeah.
As far as the most conclusive evidence, I would probably say. And so what the black mat is, when you're talking about geology, you dig into the Earth's crust and there's just layers and layers of sediment, things of that nature. And it tells the story. Now, I don't know how to read that.
Okay.
I can read a book, but
Good.
I can't read the dirt,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like these guys can. So they can look down here and they can say, okay, this was this time period. This is kind of what was going on the earth at that time. And so when you get down to that time period of 12,500 years ago, something along those lines, they see this black layer And
It's usually high in carbon.
yeah, they had they said it was about as thick as the width of your palm, like this. So so pretty thick.
So she said. Sorry, Mom.
That landed hard.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Anywho, I forgot what we were talking about, but
Black mat.
Yeah. The black
Thick as
mat,
a hand.
thick as your hand. Yeah, so anyway. But in the black mat, you got carbon, you got nanodiamonds.
you got all
What's
this
a
stuff.
microspheral?
A microspheral and a nanodiamond. Okay, so talking about a couple different types of evidence. One that you can see readily, the black, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would have been indicative of like ash and soot and all those types of things that would have occurred with these types of impacts.
Like a mass burning.
Yeah, and so the nanodiamonds are, I'm assuming they are nothing more than just tiny diamonds, right? Let me pull that up right
They
quick
come
and look
from
at
outer
it.
space, or they come from
It happens
like,
when
with the carbon?
the superheating of whatever that element is and the pressure
Okay.
causes that. Because if you talk about how those diamonds or those stones form naturally, time and pressure and heat, right?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of where that comes from. Now, all of that was being impacted and created through that, extraterrestrial body that hit the Earth. And so the microspherals, I don't know what those are. I'm not smart enough to know what that is.
Yeah.
But that's the nanodiamonds and the microspherals are sort of the microscopic evidence, whereas the
and those elements wasn't in like the other layers. So it was something very specific with that region and time when that layer was formed.
So and the only way that we found out about those two elements and what they were through nuclear testing, right? Okay. Testing the nuclear bomb. They found those same types of, composite material left over after the testing. And so then they made the correlation, well, this looks like an all-out nuclear war occurred, which I obviously don't think it was nuclear war. But
an asteroid coming in and making an impact with Earth would have given that kind of power explosion.
Way more power. And I can't explain it in a term that would make sense probably or even be remotely correct. But according to, what Randall Carlson talks about, if you're looking at the Hiroshima bomb, like that's baby cakes compared to this deal.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Like wiping out like the state of Texas sized areas. When you talk about, what do you think about the, you guys know about the Tunguska event in Siberia in 1908?
That was it was a crater, a meteoroid impact.
Yeah, it was an impact.
But luckily it hit like a remote area, so not a whole lot of people got messed up in it.
Yeah, and so it was a little bit different than what would have happened during the Younger Dryas because this was a massive impact into the Earth, but it actually wasn't a surface impact. It was an airburst. And so this thing comes flying in to the atmosphere, and it's so big and it's moving so fast and it's so massive that when it hits the atmosphere reacts and pushes down into the Earth, right? And it explodes when it comes into the Earth.
Before it even hit anything.
Before it hits anything. And so those are horrible situations, and so is the actual surface impact scenario. But in Tunguska, this was in 1908, it leveled an area that was 2,000 square miles. Jeez. just from hitting the atmosphere.
Good night.
And so when you're talking about a multi-series event like what's proposed in the Younger Dryas, like you're talking about a complete restructuring of the Earth's surface at that point.
I guess so. And from what I understood too, is there's evidence that this happened. There was like multiple meteoroids over a short period of time. Meteorites.
And it affected mostly the North America area.
The northern hemisphere.
or North American specifically.
Really?
And
Okay.
it's kind of spread into Europe and that side, but it was mostly North America.
But the effects of that event caused worldwide climate change, and that's what brought in possibly the flood and changing of the shorelines of all the continents.
Yeah,
From what I
so
understood.
let's look at this right quick. Meltwater Pulse B, the flooding that came as a result of this global flooding. It was about 11,600 years ago, marking the end of that Younger Dryas period. And this is where you see this huge rise in the sea levels because of the massive melting of ice sheets. So the global sea levels rose as much as like 20 meters in just a very short time, right?
Yeah.
It restructured the whole Earth's surface, like I said earlier. And the melting, this is a quote, by the way.
Okay.
I hope I can read these words. The melting of the Laurentide and Fennoscanadian ice sheets caused dramatic landscape changes, flooding and land bridges, and submerged coastal areas. So one interesting thing about the melting of the ice, though, was this energy paradox, right?
Yeah.
So they did this study on, okay, well, let's talk about how the how much energy it would need to actually melt these sheets of ice, right?
Right.
And so it was something like 50 megaton bombs or something like that. And even then, they said it would take like 25,000 years for it to melt. Like, they're like, okay, how can we have this much energy to melt this amount of ice this quickly?
That fast, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about just this crazy, crazy cosmic impact, like over, I mean, just several at one time, or
Yeah.
several over the course of several hundred years maybe. And what Randall Carlson said about that, he said, the amount of energy required to melt these ice sheets in such a short time is immense. The Younger Dryas Impact hypothesis fits this scenario, explaining the sudden warming and flooding as a result of massive energy released by an extraterrestrial object. So this is one of those deals like that we think about. I don't know if y'all do. I think about like, if this were to happen, like you're talking about taking the Earth's population down to like,
in the thousands, probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is a global event that would take a millennium to recover from, right? And so that's when you start thinking about what existed before that. We talked about the megafauna, which are these large mammals, the mammoth, those types of animals.
And from what I've seen Carlson say, that when they're digging in, you get that black mat. And then below the black mat, that's where you get the woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah.
You never see those kind of fossils above the black mats.
Yeah.
So that was kind of indicative that these guys lived way before.
And one of the things, too, that a lot of the experts will refute as far as trying to debunk the theory or the hypothesis is, well, if there was a civilization that existed that was advanced technologically, like, where did all of that go?
Yeah.
Well, it got completely obliterated, dude.
She gone.
Like, do you know where every little girl's journal was after we dropped the nuke in Japan? Like,
just
gone.
obliterated.
Gone.
It's turned into particles.
I mean, we're talking about creating enough pressure and heat to create diamonds in an instant here.
Yeah.
And
we're talking instant vaporization.
we don't see any tools in them like that. Well, probably don't exist anymore, dude.
You don't see anything in the
Yeah.
black mat.
So here's my thing. It's like, how does any civilization survive after that?
Well, you get to you start talking about the hunter gatherers, right?
Yeah.
That the mainstream narrative will say have been here for much longer than that, right? And these are the people that survive by the land, right? A lot different than a civilization, right? They're more tribal in their nature, and they don't grow the same way as a traditional civilization would. One evidence to support the theory of the advanced civilization relates to the hunter-gatherers and how they suddenly, around the same time, just figured out agriculture, right? They're just like, we've been here for 100,000 years, and now we just figured out if I put a seed in the ground over and over and over, a bunch of plants are going to pop up, and I can eat those plants.
Yeah.
And then we can afford to feed more people,
Right.
right? And so that type of technology was available to them in some way. So you're talking about surviving the event. Somebody from really every part of life probably survived in small numbers, and they had to band together, right? And the ones who would have survived the longest would have been the hunter-gatherers, because they already knew how to live off the land.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about somebody like us trying to walk into a forest with a bunch of jungle people and integrate into their society, well, I mean, what are you bringing to the table, bud? You know, we're struggling right now.
I got my iPhone.
We went from 800 to 8, dude, and we ate some of those people.
Yeah.
So you better be bringing something, or you're not going to get in the club here.
So different,
Get the club.
different point of view on that. Do you think that this could have been the Noah's flood, and nobody survived except for, you know, the guys and girls on the boat?
Yeah. So I mean, that's a great thought.
Because
I've thought about that.
The timeline's close,
Yeah, it
biblically
is.
to what they're saying. So
Yeah, it is. And you know, things that make me think. Well, there's a few things that make me think that this directly correlates with that. Number one is the fact that, like, throughout all cultures, really across the world, there's this narrative of a great flood, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, every religion talks about it. Of course, we know our book's right, so you know, there was a flood. Sorry. We just know, right? And so, if there was a great flood, what did God say when he finished, you know, flooding the earth? I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah.
So there was one that we are aware of that for sure happened.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about what we're talking about here, major flooding that completely, you know,
wiped everything
just
out.
wiped everything
Started
out,
over, basically.
I think it has to be the same event, right? And I think, honestly, it brings a whole lot of new perspective into the awesome power of God, because when you're in Sunday school in 4th grade and you're learning about Noah's Ark, it's like, man, it rained for 40 days. Well, golly, that had to have been a bunch of rain, dude.
That's what we were just talking about. So this
Did it just
so,
rain solid?
Yeah.
Just a sheet of rain?
So my thought with that was the meteor event happened, all right, away from Noah. He didn't see all that. Water starts rising, but then that triggers the rain to happen, because that's, you know, you get the water, you get the moisture, that's when the clouds form and rain falls. So maybe the water was coming from the bottom, but it was also coming from the top, and that's where you get your 40 days of rain.
100%. Yeah, 100%. You know, like, I just think that has to be the same event. And it going back to what I said about the awesome power of God, like, you know, you just think like, well, it rained a lot, and then you think, okay, God said, I'm going to pour out my wrath on the earth, basically, and I'm going to kill everybody except you and your family. And so he's like, what's up with these rocks I'm fixing to throw at you guys? Watch this, you know, and everybody's
wound up, pitcher's mound. I mean, just 98.
No, he's just sitting there just flicking them off a table somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's just nothing to him.
Yeah.
Just the vast knowledge and wisdom of him to just say, I think I'm just going to throw these cosmic objects into the earth and destroy this ice and then flood the earth that way. It just seems a little bit like an easier approach to me.
Yeah.
If I was God, you know, after learning about this, I was like, it's a good idea.
Because
you know?
science, math, everything that we know of, like, God created it.
Yeah.
So why can't he use it?
Well, you know, I would say God created us and we created those things. And science, for one, I mean, you can talk about science in a lot of different ways, but the way that science has been viewed over the last 4 years, really probably a little bit longer than that, is it's really just a religion. You know, we saw that during COVID. I mean,
and it's not always right.
Do we even need to go down there?
No, we're going to go there.
I
we're
mean,
going to go there eventually.
Yeah.
We've already been there once.
Trust the science. Trust the science. Trust the science.
Would you go as far as
Where's your mask, Santa? You're going to give my kids COVID.
Is it a bit cultish, you think? Is there a death cult?
Super cultish. I mean, you're on the level of Hollywood elites.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get super deep and talk about how all these people are really just devil worshiping pedophiles, but we can go there.
I mean,
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I want to come back after our little plug break. I want to talk about the civilizations that may have been wiped out by this and where this ties into possibly the Book of Enoch.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we tie everything to the Book of Enoch.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
And
goodness.
I think we have one here. But yeah, let's take a quick break. Check out shroudedrealities.com. You got links to all our stuff. Sam needs to pee. You want to go pee while we do this?
Thanks, bud. I appreciate that.
it's actually number 2.
Don't take number 2. We ain't got that much
be,
time.
We'll be back in about 45 minutes.
We ain't got that much time. But yeah, shroudedrealities.com. Got links to all our stuff. shroudrealities@gmail.com if you want to email us. We've got t-shirts for sale. We've got our Patreon up. We got our first Patreon. Legit. Not real legit. My brother was the first. We've already plugged. We plugged him.
Yeah, it's my brother, so, he's not really legit.
He's not real.
We're playing with Monopoly
It's like
money
saying my
here.
mom's my biggest fan. Of course he's my biggest fan. But yeah, Silent Seed 324 was our first super rich Patreon subscriber. We got 3 levels. $2 gets you early access to shows and our chat room. We don't have a whole lot to
Chat
offer.
room.
Yeah.
What? I'm not in the chat room.
You got to get on Patreon. $2 a
Wow.
month. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
Get be a
Cheesy
guest,
roll-ups.
and
There you
you're
go.
like, hey, you gotta pay to get in this
Just
club.
text us, but we got to pay that premium.
But $2 a month gets you that. $5 a month, because you're rich, you get the same 2 things because we don't have anything else to offer.
Plus a tinfoil hat.
And then
Signed.
our boy Silent C324 signed up for the $10 Mega Rich because what's $10 a month?
Whoa.
So yeah, we're super appreciative of that for real. Though.
Put that on the credit card.
Yeah, we're super appreciative. So go to Patreon, check out stuff, get a little hookup, and we got shirts for sale too. We got I've got a friend of ours setting up making us a ladies shirt option. You know, we got this shirt
Give
on
the ladies cut.
online right now, but maybe the ladies
In the
cut.
wise
but
words of
some
Matt Walsh,
some cool design.
what is a woman?
What is a woman? You tell me what a woman is. Yeah, okay, so Sam's gonna take a break. Me and Connor will carry it for a minute. We can't pause it. We're live. We got an hour. You can roll with it.
Let's take a little break.
You can take a break. Okay, that was the break. You're supposed to go while we were plugging things.
This is the break. Sam.
He's got to go empty his megaphone over real quick.
Super professional over here. There we go.
You forgot where it's at?
Don't go number 2. You got that long. But
Dropping comments. And then ice caps in there.
I want to wait to talk Atlantis when he gets back.
Okay.
But yeah, so you got Atlantis. There's a bunch of other different little civilizations that supposedly got wiped out, but their history got carried through verbally. Plato, I think, was the last one to talk about, or the first one historically that we know of that talked about Atlantis
Yep.
and what they did. From what I understand, he got that information from one of his ancestors that got that from the Egyptians.
Do you imagine your entire life is just to carry on information you heard from the last person? Like that is your life's goal is to remember all of that and pass it on. That would be tough right there.
Yeah, and you got to write it down.
Yeah.
And then that's got to get passed down to the next people. So, and that's what makes this subject so hard is because you get into the ancient history. Where do you get that ancient history from? You know, it's you got some evidence geologically and archaeologically, but it's
And then some hints here and there from other texts of just like a paragraph or two about something else that doesn't exist anymore.
And then some archaeological nerd, he just makes up the story and everybody's got to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know. But yeah, we was just talking about
Sounds
Atlantis.
like what Dr. Fauci did back in 2020.
Yeah, you go there again. Yeah, so Atlantis. We gave a little history on it, or a little snippet of Atlantis. So from what Hancock and them believe, Atlantis and some of those pre-history ancient civilizations that were advanced, they just got wiped out because they were on the coastline apparently.
How advanced?
Well, the Atlantis demise was actually related to the fact that they were built on, well, let me rephrase that. The most likely candidate for the location of Atlantis is on this major Atlantic fault line, right?
Okay.
It's apparently the thinnest part of Earth's crust.
Huh.
And so
It's
basically
a good place to build a city.
this shift
They
happens,
didn't have
right?
contractors.
and it just drops.
It just took it
It's
away.
a sunken plateau is actually what it's called. And you know, when these tectonic plates move against each other, you know, we get earthquakes and those types of things, tsunamis.
Yeah.
Goes back to major
flood.
flooding, like earthquakes would have been caused by the impacts, like these plates are moving.
Yeah.
Tsunamis, more flooding, like the whole 9 yards. Well, they're on this fault line, and when that shift occurs, triggers tsunamis, everything else, and they just sink.
Yeah.
The whole shelf that they're on just sinks into the ocean.
Wow.
And so that time frame, according to Plato, who was the earliest known, and earliest being like the oldest known expert on Atlantis, his time frame was lining up directly with this Younger Dryas impact as well. So
Gotcha. How advanced do you think Atlantis was?
you know, I don't know. I think when you talk about ancient civilizations and being advanced, lots of times one of the faults that researchers have is, well, we don't find anything that would give us an indication that these are advanced civilizations because we didn't find, you know, metal tools or things like that. Well, they're looking for what they know, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for the technology that we've developed. And so give a civilization, you know, 5,000 years to track in a different direction of technological advancement. Not talking about our way of doing things, mechanical leverage and things of that nature, and they go in a different route. Like, we don't have a clue what they could have come up with. I mean, we're talking about when you talk about the megalithic structures and how they were built, there's a lot of evidence that would indicate that the Egyptians or whoever built those pyramids had technology that allowed them to use frequency to levitate objects and move objects. Everything vibrates on a frequency, right? And if you can harness that energy in a way to manipulate it, manipulate matter perhaps, then you can easily move things around. I don't know if you guys have seen those videos where they basically use sound waves to levitate objects, but like it's a thing, right? And so
that's gonna be a future episode, by the way. We're gonna dig into frequencies, and
you progress into that for 5,000 years.
Yeah.
You're doing some stuff.
You get some Jedi mind tricks going
so
on.
I think they were incredibly advanced.
So where do you think that knowledge came from?
Well,
I'm setting you up here for for my theory that I'm fit to drop.
Well, in Genesis chapter 3, the main characters in Genesis, being Adam and Eve and God the Father, are in the garden. You've got Satan who comes into the picture, and God tells Adam and Eve that you can do all of these things. You have access to all of what's in this garden here, but don't eat of the tree, the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So the enemy comes along and he tempts Eve to do it. And what's he say? He basically says, oh, you won't die. God said you'll die, but you're not going to die. He just doesn't want you to become like him in the knowledge of good and evil. And so in Eve's pursuit of a good thing, knowledge, she sinned, right? And what happened? It brought about a curse on the earth, and sin entered the earth. And as a result, everyone that's been born since then has been born into this sin nature. And so anytime that you deviate from something that God gives you to do, and you pursue other things, and are disobedient to that call on your life, like you can be chasing as whatever is good, you know, in the world, like a career or, you know, all these other things, like even ministry. Like you can be in ministry for the wrong reasons, right? And so when you take your eyes off of the giver and you look at the gift, like you can go in a multitude of directions. And so what I'm getting at with that is knowledge can be a good thing, right? Knowledge of the things that you know, God has in his word, but anything outside of that would maybe take our attention and our focus away from the Lord, I think comes from the enemy, right? All good things come from God, right? And so when you start talking about that, you almost have to assume that, number one, this is a divisive tactic of the enemy.
Yeah.
Like, people can't agree on stuff. They're going to fight, whatever. Division happens, but I can't answer that any other way, I guess.
So fast forward a couple chapters, you get into Genesis 6:4 with the sons of God coming down.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and according to the book of Enoch, that they brought down a lot of knowledge that we wasn't supposed to have. And that's where I think that a lot of this ancient civilization came from, was these camps, you can call them, of different sects, SCET, not the other word.
Sprinkle me.
But
Where's the sprinkle one?
No, not that one. Hang on. There it is.
There we go.
So, you got all these different areas, different tribes. I'm not
Yeah.
going to use that other word because it sounds too much like the other word. But you got all these different tribes of little s sons of God, fallen angels, making their little tribes. Maybe Atlantis was one of those. They used that heavenly knowledge that they had that they weren't supposed to have and built it, and them being wiped away was part of God's plan to part of the gene wars.
How do you think that relates to, and I'm not an expert on this.
Yep.
I'm just throwing this out there because I'm waiting for Connor to jump.
This is what we do. So, yeah.
The Anunnaki.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's a whole episode by itself.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
we've got a few people talking about that, and I think they come at it from a way crazy perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so let's think about this in terms of the context, right? You're talking about primitive civilizations here. And
Quote unquote.
they're,
primitive.
well, in their,
I'm thinking they're more advanced than
primitive in their understanding of the world as a whole,
Okay.
right? Like, they didn't go to space. We didn't either.
Or did they?
Sorry, I had to say that. But, at least we act like we know what's going on up there,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so,
We got some good telescopes.
I mean, they can predict some stuff, meteor showers, Halley's Comet, those types of things. So,
Hellbop.
I've never seen Halley's Comet, but I've never been to the moon either.
Heard the song.
Or what?
Heard the song.
Oh, yeah. You talking about that?
Shine Down?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Bop from
That's a great
Hanson.
song.
No, no.
But anyways, primitive in their understanding, and so when you talk about what you're saying with the fallen angels, basically coming down to the earth,
Dirty up the gene pool.
and just spreading it around, you know, and that's got to be when you're talking about pagans, the people who weren't a part of God's chosen race. And their understanding of all of those things would have differed from the Jews, right, or the Israelites. And so that very well could take a turn to, this is the legend of the Anunnaki who came from another planet and all this other stuff.
They created what we know as the world.
Yeah. So I think there's a big connection there.
Yeah. And we'll dig into that later in another episode. I think the Anunnaki... That would take some time
that's
to
a lot of
break down.
decompartmentalizing.
That's one of those that you just don't want to get overheard talking about much.
That's a firing.
You're just over here
You're
thinking, like,
nuts.
This dude has absolutely lost his mind.
Get this guy
OD'd
a
on
jacket.
Zoloft.
Did y'all ever see that Scooby-Doo live action movie back in like 2004?
Yes.
Do you remember the guy on the beach who had that skeleton thing that he had hanging up?
Wait, I'm trying to think. Was this the one with
I don't
I'm about to
remember
pull it up.
I don't remember
Because that's what I think about when I think about the Anunnaki. I think about these are the type of people.
Let me
who
see
believe-
this. Let me
who
see
believe
this.
in this.
Is this when they were in the van cooking food?
I'll pull up a picture.
It's that movie.
Okay.
I'll pull up a picture and put it on our
Okay.
on our YouTube whenever we get this edited.
Yeah. The people we know that talk about the Anunnaki definitely look jobless.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. I mean,
So from the pictures I've seen, they looked alien-like
mhm.
with like garbs of just like gold and.
Well, I'm talking about the people who talk about them.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, you got me. Oh,
Yeah,
I see
so,
now.
The Arnuki beast.
Yep.
Yeah, these are your support. These are your big supporters.
Save
right
that.
here.
Save that and send it to me. I'll put a picture up on our
I'll
YouTube.
text you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing is ugly though.
So,
whatever that is.
So
Goodness
let's
gracious.
we're running out of time. I do want to touch into we touched on a little bit at the beginning. So Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson,
man, I know
big
where this
big
is going.
proponents of this. They admitted on Joe Rogan's show that some of their revelations for this came through a little partaking of some acid, some DMT, I think they called
Some
it.
dark arts.
Hallucinogens.
Hallucinogenics. Yeah. So
yeah.
So me and Connor was talking about it before this show started. We have zero basis on this. This is completely conjecture, but
Never done drugs.
I've never done it, so I can't speak personally to it. But what if these trips that people go on is a tear in the veil of the spiritual realm? They get to see into a realm that we don't see. Vice versa, they are getting on a trip. They are getting information that's otherworldly, and being that otherworldly would be the trapped spirits of the fallen angels.
Right. And so then it calls in the question: Is it real? Is it not real? What?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
is this false information that's given to us by fallen angels to pull us away from God? Kind of
So,
touching back to what you just said about.
I was a pretty reckless guy before I got saved.
Okay.
And so I had no problem eating mushrooms.
You done it?
A
tripped?
lot.
Yeah.
I've eaten a lot of mushrooms.
Man, it explains
Yeah.
everything.
Mush.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's. I'm not
So-
gonna say that it was not enjoyable. It was excellent, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you.
So did you have visions like this or
I
Or
had,
trips that kinda
what I would
changed your
refer
perspective?
to as revelations
you
on
have?
a number of occasions
Okay.
doing that. And now it's been 15 years probably since I did any of that, but
Yeah.
the experiences were profound, to say the least. And to say that they're not spiritual would just be ignorant, to be
Really?
quite honest
Okay.
with you.
And that's where I'm getting at with that. Is like that's kind of what everybody says is if you do go on a trip, it's a spiritual experience.
Yeah,
Right.
And the best way I can describe it is just a rip in the veil of the spirit realm that just kind of
It certainly brings you closer to nature.
okay.
In a way that's just indescribable if you haven't done it. When
Now, would you say it comes from
Selling us
a,
pretty well, actually.
from a place of darkness, or do you think it's
I think certainly anything can be used for evil, right?
Yeah.
I think as far as motive is concerned, that has a lot to do with it. The set and setting is another thing. Like you don't want to
Okay.
just be like facing a bag of mushrooms and then going to Walmart. You know what I mean?
I feel
That's
like I go on
gonna
a
be a-
trip when I go to Walmart anyway.
That's going to be a bad.
without the mushroom.
That's going to be a bad trip to the grocery store. I'm just telling you. So
Be naked in front of the cash register at the end of that.
you don't want to open up yourself to that, right?
Yeah.
And so all the times I did it, most of the time it was in the woods. You know,
Okay.
and it was really profound.
Well, that's an interesting place that I can go on a trip.
Oh yeah, just light a fire and lay on a bench
Yeah.
and stare at a tree for 6 hours.
Did the
Or
tree talk
walk
to you?
around. No, you don't hear anything. You don't see anything that's not there, right? It's just
In your experience, from what I've understood, the experiences are vastly different between.
You're talking about these guys dropping acid and taking dimethyltryptamine, which is the chemical compound
That's the
that's
DMT
released
that they were
into
talking
your
about.
brain when you
Okay.
die, right?
Oh,
So
jeez.
you gonna see some stuff if you take that for
Yeah.
sure. And,
100%.
and when you talk about going on a trip,
Yeah.
you going somewhere, right? You're not just kind of here and hey, I'm tripping. Like if you did that, I don't have any experience with that. No desire to do that.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, the evidence. This has been a scientific study recently, right?
Yeah.
They started studying this drug, I believe in the United Kingdom, but I'd have to get back with you on that.
Okay.
But they were figuring out like, okay, when you do this drug, it takes the user to this place, right? Everybody has the same experience. We meet people when we go.
From what I've heard, they meet the same named entities.
The same kind of entities, right?
Yeah.
And they've seen technology,
Yeah.
right, in this that is otherworldly,
Yeah.
right? And so this study, they found a way to keep them in this place. The normal duration was like 10, 12 minutes. They kept them there for like an hour, right? And they studied it, and then they collected the reports from the users afterwards to sort of try and create a map, is what Graham Hancock said, a map of this dimension or this realm or whatever it is. And so when you're talking about what you're talking about, I don't know anything about the Book of Enoch, but you know, there's a lot of correlation.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did episode 1 and episode 5. We touched on the Book of Enoch a lot, and we're finding a lot of stuff
That touches back.
To it. Kind of makes things tie together. You know what I mean? Like you got different worlds. You got like acid trip world. We like even this episode, we went from a cataclysmic event 12,000 years ago, and we're tying it to acid.
Phase.
You know what I mean? So like, but when you bring
to the show.
yeah, that's Shrouded Realities for you. But with the whole context of all of it, it all ties together. You know, if you compartmentalize everything, it gives it a different feel. But if you tie it all together in the biblical world and then with our biblical worldview, it makes a lot of it make sense.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, the way that we evaluate these types of things are the same approach, right? We take what is available to us as far as information is concerned, and then we form our own opinion, right? And the Bible says that we are foolish to the world. Like our knowledge of God and the things of God make us fools to the world.
Yeah.
And so we know the truth as far as that's concerned, and it differs from the mainstream narrative, right? But it just makes more sense.
Yeah.
And when you go down this road, regardless of what topic that you're discussing, once that veil is taken away from your life and for your perspective on everything, it never gets put back.
Right.
Like, unless you just decide, you know, I'm not even going to look at anything anymore. You know, I'm at the point where it's just like, no need to watch the news.
Yeah.
None. None.
It's
you know,
all
I ain't
fake.
even watching the weather. We don't have cable at my house.
Nice.
I don't want to see commercials. It's all just brainwash.
Brain rot.
Yeah,
It's just
I mean,
lobotomized
it's
television.
just-
Yeah.
I'm just going to go ahead and do this. I'll tell you guys what I thought you said here in a minute.
Okay.
I can't hear very good, even with headphones on. No, I mean, my hearing's no good.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes I hear things that I shouldn't hear. You know?
Middle school
Yeah,
brain.
just fleshly ears I've got over here. So
Sounds like a good place to stop. Connor, you got any final thoughts before we move?
I don't want this to happen again, that's for sure.
What's that?
It's only been 12,000 years if it's true.
Yeah, there's,
know what I
there's a bit of a
that's a
fear.
good point.
There's
yeah.
a bit of a fear of it happening.
Yeah, they say that they miss a lot of
What's
things
the-
that pass
Dude,
the
Well, what's the
closely.
comet? The belt? There's some
Petroid or something?
No, the
Tauri-
Taurid meteor
Tauri meteor
stream.
belt
Yeah.
stream. Yeah. That's where we get our-
We go through that every year for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence.
It's like the universe is having a period
of
or
like
something.
underground civilizations that would like move into the bedrock
Yeah.
for like a couple weeks a year just to
Yeah.
avoid these types of scenarios
I gotcha.
and you know near Earth objects coming
Yeah.
in. We got a second moon right now. Basically, you know about that?
No.
What?
No.
Yeah, there's an object that is like coming through Earth's orbit,
Yeah.
you know, and gonna basically be flying in roughly as close as the moon. And you know, it just look at this. Look at the data for the last 20 years. There's been, you know, impact like objects coming close to the Earth,
Yeah.
like almost every year that would absolutely destroy.
They're like,
our
there's a chance, like, this is over.
there
This
was
is it.
there was
Yeah.
one. I think it was 800 meters wide, and it came within an eighth of the distance of the Earth to the Moon.
I
in
mean,
the
just,
last 10
just
years.
a bit of variance would just end
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
We're hanging on by a thread.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is stuff I didn't even want to know. It's
Yeah.
like I would have rather live
It's a
without this information.
very common occurrence.
So when's
Very.
the second moon thing happening? You got me scared a little.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I know where I'm going.
Well, I mean, that's true.
Cause
That's true.
yeah. I mean, I might go out of business.
no more cabinets.
We might circle back on second moon.
Yeah. You think they're gonna land on the second moon?
I got land on the first one first.
Earth will capture second moon this weekend.
You talking about like
Yeah, this was
September
posted
29th?
This was posted 2 days ago. Earth will get a second moon this weekend, but it won't be sticking around for long.
What? What?
Earth will capture a second moon on
What's your source?
Sunday, September 29th. Space.com, NASA would be one of the sources here. NASA
news.
scientists
How are
have
we just not hearing
calculated-
about this through Sam on Shrouded Realities podcast?
Wow, yeah.
And the world's gonna miss this because it's gonna be 3 weeks before I put this up.
Yeah, so sorry, bud. Need to speed up those editing
I'm gonna have to get
times.
this out. I'm gonna get this out.
Tomorrow.
Well, you can get it out on Patreon. I'll get it on Patreon
That's
tomorrow,
right.
so the world can hear about the second moon before it.
Yeah, it's Sunday.
Now, that's gonna jack up our tides and
Two floods.
everything.
No, it's not
What'd
at
you
the
say?
same size as the moon, right? It's an
Okay.
asteroid, but it's coming within that same orbital range. This is it, 2024 PT5.
Oh, I see it.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It sounded a lot more
Sounds
sinister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's gonna be.
Yeah, we're
twinning
getting
up.
another moon, dude.
That'd be pretty dope.
That's what
honestly.
you said.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory Horizon System. Like these are the people that are calling it a second moon, right? NASA scientists have calculated that Earth will capture a second moon on Sunday, September 29th. So,
Wonder if we'll be able
not
to
my
see
words,
it.
man.
Wonder if we'll be able
My
to
words.
see it. There we go. Okay. That's a good place to wrap. The world's going to end because the second moon's going to come into our orbit.
Yep, wrap it up.
Yeah. Jeez. Come on.
Sorry, Joey's mom.
Yeah, sorry, Joe. See, I get in trouble every weekend for my mom's like, you got to stop with the penis jokes and the
You're
fart jokes.
52.
Not 42.
Sorry.
I'm not in my 50s yet. Thanks a lot. But yeah, let's wrap it up. Appreciate you coming, Sam.
buddy.
It was fun.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, you brought a lot of good knowledge. I was excited to hear your thoughts on a lot of this. We hadn't been able to brief with you, so I was wondering how this is going to work, and it tied together
did.
surprisingly with
This
a
is
lot
going
of our
to be.
thoughts.
This is going to be more of a common occurrence here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in.
Yeah, we'll bring you back.
I'll be your fill-in.
Sweet. Well, I appreciate it. You did good. Sam,
Oh, yeah.
for Sam, filling in for Steven, Joey, Connor, and Ruby, the podcast dog. We'll appreciate you listening. ShroudedRealities.com. Check it out. Catch you on the next one.